Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about some breaking news regarding Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator BYRON LEFTWICH, and that breaking news is that he's been hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars to be their head coach. And I am not alone in talking about this breaking news today. Joining me yet again from the Cannon Fire podcast, it is both Rhett and Evan. How are you both doing today? Rhett, we will start with you, then pass it on to Evan.
Good, man. Big loss for this Buccaneers offense. We'll obviously talk about it over the next few minutes, but excited to get into this one.
Yeah, just like you said, a big loss, a bigger loss than I think many people will realize. There's seems to be a good portion of the fan base that thinks BYRON LEFTWICH is really good, and another one that doesn't think he's very good. So I definitely think it'll be an adjustment. Life without him, is he's been their offensive coordinator for the past 3 years. So
yeah, and I think you guys just put it perfectly there, right? This is going to be a move that's going to be divisive for fans, right? Some people have been calling for this, since Tom Brady came to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and other people have been saying, no, BYRON LEFTWICH actually does a pretty darn good job as an offensive coordinator. So like you guys both said, there's going to be that split. Rhett, I want your thoughts on this move first here. The Buccaneers losing BYRON LEFTWICH to the Jacksonville Jaguars, then we'll toss it on to Evan. So, Rhett, what are your initial thoughts here with the Bucs? Having BYRON LEFTWICH be hired away as the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, to be honest with you, the biggest thing that comes to mind for me is what Bruce Arians said in his press conference earlier this week. He had basically proposed that if BYRON LEFTWICH does end up taking a coaching job elsewhere in the NFL, he will take over play calling duties. And that's a big deal because he hasn't done that since his time back in Arizona. Most of the time in the NFL, he was calling plays for the offense he had out there. And part of the reason he stepped away from the NFL was the responsibility of stuff like play calling. But when asked about it in correlation to the health issues, he says he definitely has a better system now and where he'd be able to make it work. And I think that honestly provides the Bucs a little bit more of a chance to want to hire from within when looking for their next offensive coordinator. I think, Bruce Arians taking over the play calling is going to make the transition a little bit easier if they are looking to bring in somebody from within the organization, because if you bring out an outside guy, I know we've said, maybe Freddie Kitchens is a name to think about because the connections with Arians are there, but he's still an outside hire. He still has to come in, kind of relearn the playbook. It's been a while since he's worked with Arians, and I'm sure Arians is going to make his own changes in the playbook compared to 100% BYRON LEFTWICH look. So I'm curious what's going to happen there. But honestly, Bruce Arians taking over the play calling, that's the biggest factor to me, and what's going to determine how this Bucs offense looks going forward.
yeah, obviously LEFTWICH was given a pretty big opportunity back in 2019 to call plays for the first time, really. And it was surprising that Bruce Arians came and he wasn't going to be the guy calling plays, but it also showed you the confidence that Bruce Arians had in LEFTWICH. And now it seems like Bruce Arians will take back those play calling duties. Not official. We won't really know until somebody officially says yeah, he's doing it. We won't know. So even with this move now, with their offensive coordinator leaving, it's not a given that Bruce Arians is calling plays because they will have a new offensive coordinator. Somebody will be promoted to that role, whether it be Harold Godwin or somebody else from the outside. Is LEFTWICH, let's admit, we put out Kevin Garver as a potential offensive coordinator option for the Bucs, but LEFTWICH can bring any of these guys on his staff. So we don't know his full staff at this moment. We just know that he's the head coach of the Jaguars. So the staff could look a lot different, but I do think the biggest takeaway has to be from a Bucs perspective that Bruce Arians is now going to be calling the plays. It'll likely be the same offense. It'll be a similar offense, but that Bruce Arians is calling the plays, it'll definitely, I think, make a difference.
And like you guys said, once that is confirmed, Bruce Arians does or does not end up calling plays for this Buccaneers offense, there will probably be separate content talking about that. Also, probably another video coming out as to, which guys would be the offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers now that LEFTWICH is gone. But I think this has a very big ripple effect for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, right? The first one is that, like Evan said, BYRON LEFTWICH can take guys from the Buccaneers coaching staff right now, add it to his coaching staff. Again, if stuff like that does happen, we'll be making separate videos talking about that. That's the first thing. Second thing, you guys just mentioned it again, both of you. Bruce Arians calling plays. that is something that a lot of people, again, like what Rhett was saying, were shocked did not happen whenever Bruce Arians first came to Tampa Bay. Again, it was due to health issues. Maybe he's on the TB12 method now, right? Maybe that's his method to, staying healthier and being able to call plays. But I still don't know if it's a 100% guarantee, right? That, Arians will 100% be calling plays. So that's something that's going to be worth monitoring. But then number 3, if Tom Brady stays with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I know it's still up in the air as to whether or not he will or will not retire. I think all 3 of us are still in agreement that he will come back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How does that factor into this? A new offensive coordinator, it may force Arians to, call plays because of the fact of, hey, you don't want a new play caller for Tom Brady after he just got 2 years to get comfortable with his current play caller here in Tampa Bay. There'd be some level of continuity with Arians still being there. I think that we can all agree on that, correct?
Yeah, and I think that kind of circles back to what I was saying about how it just invites it a little bit more for them to hire somebody from within the organization. Because I think if we're assuming Tom Brady comes back, the last thing you want is anything new that he's going to have to learn, right? Because this is already a system that Brady's been in for 2 full seasons at this point. So the less you change, the better. I think the more familiar face they're able to get at that coordinator role, the easier that transition would be. But yeah, definitely something to think about is the possibility of it being an outside hire. There's still some adjustments in itself to doing something like that.
I mean, also, this could impact Tom Brady's decision. Let's say even if the Bucs do stay inside the organization, let's say Kevin Garver stays on, which we don't know. People could be watching this video right now and Kevin Garver is already gone. Who knows? But as of right now, he hasn't been announced. So, he could be the offensive coordinator. He's never called plays before. So if you're going to give the play calling to a guy like that, a guy with no experience, Tom Brady might say, oh, well, maybe I don't want to come back to that. But if you're giving it to a guy like Bruce Arians, who literally has won Coach of the Year because of his calling the plays, right? Because of him having so much success doing it, he has a track record, and I think Tom Brady would respect that. So, if you're looking at something that appeals to Brady more, not that the Bucs have to sell it more to him, but just something that would appeal to Brady a little bit more, I'm sure he'd rather have Arians as his play caller than some first-year guy again, starting over. He had the inexperienced coordinator in Leftwich. I don't think he wants to do it again.
And I agree with what both of you guys said about that in regards to play calling and, new OCs and all these other different types of things. But there's one other thing I forgot to mention in terms of a, fallout, a domino, if you will, falling in terms of Leftwich being hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's actually a positive for the Bucs. Evan, we had talked about this before we started this video, and that is a new rule that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have, or not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers specifically, that the NFL.
The NFL.
Yeah,
yes. I had gotten the rule wrong originally. I had thought that it was only for 1 year, but it turns out, James, as you'll explain, that it actually affects multiple years.
Right. So, well, I won't explain it, Evan. You'll explain it. So, what is this new rule that is happening now in regards to comp picks with coaching hires in the NFL right now?
Yeah, so it applies to minority coaches and general managers. Anytime an organization has a minority head coaching candidate or a general manager candidate, and that candidate gets hired by another organization, the team who used to have that person, so in this case the Buccaneers with BYRON LEFTWICH, they would now get a 3rd round compensatory pick, not just this year, which is 2022, but also in next year's draft, 2023. So the Bucs are going to be looking at 2 3rd-round picks this year, as well as 2 3rd-round picks next year. And that's the same way if Todd Bowles gets hired. So that's the same exact thing. If Todd Bowles gets hired, the Bucs could be looking at 3 3rd-round picks this year and 3 3rd-round picks next year. It's the same thing. His name is still in the mix for some head coaching opportunities. We'll have to wait and see on that. But that is the new rule. I believe it was put in place last year. I think was the first year they enforced it. And it really benefits the Buccaneers here.
Yeah, Evan, we talked about this using comp picks, right, to your advantage to be able to build through the draft. It's what we've seen teams like the New England Patriots, the Baltimore Ravens do. Rhett, go ahead and give your thoughts on, what that could potentially mean here. The Bucs are already with an extra third-round pick now in this upcoming NFL draft and next year's draft as well. That can help out with trades as well. That's an important thing to remember. Kind of talk about how huge that is for the Bucs to get a couple of extra draft picks there, and maybe even potentially more depending on what happens with Todd Bowles.
Yeah, not only can it help out with trades, I mean, we talk about still a little bit up in the air, but if Tom Brady ends up retiring, it's been reported that the assumption is the Bucs are going to try and be pretty aggressive on any free agency quarterbacks. One name that's, kind of the sexy pick right now that's being tossed around is Russell Wilson. But I mean, that could totally help if the Bucs wanted to just send a boatload of picks over for a big name free agent quarterback. But even when you talk about building this football team beyond when guys like Tom Brady are still going to be here, or even Bruce Arians, if you get 2 years worth of third round picks from Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles going to different places, and great for them, by the way, really glad that they get that opportunity. I think they were owed last year after the Super Bowl a couple of jobs, but this year seems to be the year for them, hopefully. But I mean, the Bucs can load up on those picks, and if anybody can find value in a third round pick, I think it's Jason Light. He's been on a little bit of a hot streak. I know Keshawn Vaughn as a third round pick hasn't exactly panned out, but he found some improvement towards the end. I mean, I think it's nothing but great news for the Bucs, and something they can definitely use to rebuild this team a little bit younger in certain areas over the years.
In the NFL draft, one thing I will say, the more picks you have, the better, right?
Yeah.
Whether you hit on those picks or not, you get more chances to hit. Right, you just get more chances at the dartboard with a lottery ticket. So the more picks you have, the better. And like you said, even if Tom Brady comes back, maybe this team is aggressive and they send a third round pick to somebody for a veteran player. Who knows? The Bucs didn't have a fourth round pick in the 2020 offseason because they traded their one for Rob Gronkowski, and then they traded their other to trade up for Tristan Wirfs. That was the last time the Bucs had a comp pick. So, that high nature. So the Bucs have used them before, and it'll be interesting to see how they use them this time.
Absolutely. And guys, we're gonna finish off this video, but I want to get your final thoughts on Byron Leftwich leaving the Bucs now, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the first time in the longest time I can remember, an offensive coordinator getting hired as a head coach away from the Bucs. I seriously don't remember the last time that happened. Well, no, I don't remember the last time that happened. So it's been a good long while. Rhett, we'll start with you and then toss it to Evan. What are your final thoughts on Byron Leftwich?
Yeah, first things first, good for Byron, right? I think the guy has been solid enough of an offensive coordinator. He's pretty divisive among fans, as it's been said in this video, so some people aren't going to agree with me, but Tom Brady thrived in his offense for 2 full seasons, right? I mean, Byron Leftwich is partially the reason Tom Brady was able to go out there and throw as many touchdowns as he did, because some way, somehow those play calls were working, right? When the Bucs were averaging over 30 points a game during the playoffs, it's because of the offense and it's because of how it was working. So good for Byron, but I think the biggest thing, truthfully, is going to be what kind of adjustment we see from the Bucs. I think it could be something we're talking about the first quarter of next season is, maybe some guys trying to get used to some different things in the offense. It could be some early adjustments depending on the play calling. I think the chemistry between Brady and the new play caller, if it's not Bruce Arians, is also going to be something that might take up to half a season to really end up being ironed out. But Brady's the best of the best. And if he comes back to play, I don't think any adjustments in this playbook in particular are going to be too tough for him to overcome. But I mean, adjustments will definitely have to be made from the Bucs, and I'm excited to see how it shakes out.
We talk about the comfortability thing. At the end of the day, the good thing is it's still, as long as it's Bruce Arians, it's still the same playbook relatively. So
maybe
there will be
different situational calls. At times.
So some slight adjustments here and there maybe. But it's definitely it's a loss. It is a loss. This guy was a guy that didn't even get an interview last year after they won the Super Bowl, and he should have at least gotten an interview. Maybe not gotten hired because you wanted another year of experience, but didn't even get an interview. And now he's got hired for a head coaching gig, and he's completely earned it, I believe. I mean, he's had a top 10 offense every year he's been in Tampa, even with Jameis Winston. So a lot of people can say, well, Tom Brady made him. Well, he did with the previous quarterback as well. And that quarterback threw 30 interceptions, which didn't help. So, I do think that he has earned it, and best of luck to him.
If you're a Jags fan and you're watching this video, I think he got a good coach, right? I do. I said this on UCF Jaguars channel earlier on in the interviewing process and whatnot. I actually got a prediction right. I mean, I'm just saying, but no, I said it in that video and I'll say it in this video. I think Byron Leftwich can and will be a good coach for the Jaguars. I think will work hard to develop Trevor Lawrence. He's a player's coach, right? He really does work hard to make those genuine connections with his players. And I think that, when you look for a head coach, you look for one of the main things you look for is a guy who can be a leader of men. That is something that Byron Leftwich can be hands down, in my opinion. So I think the Jags got a very good head coach there in Leftwich, and I think that is a huge loss for the Buccaneers offense, like what both of you guys said. And, as we said, we'll have to wait and see what the Buccaneers do in response to this in terms of potentially losing staff members in their offensive staff, who's going to be calling plays, who's going to be the new offensive coordinator, and all this stuff in between. And we will be covering all of that here, so stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have a lot more content to talk about. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed. Rhett, Evan, I want to thank you both for being on this video. Greatly appreciated. For everybody watching, if you do want to go check out the Cannon Fire podcast, a link to their YouTube channel will be down in the pinned comment, down in the comment section below, where they will also have a video with yours truly on there, talking about the Byron Leftwich to the Jaguars hiring. Make sure you go check that out. You aren't going to want to miss it. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed, and we will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.